Caesar was evidently stretching beyond his original remit when he first opted to invade Britain. However, he needed to placate his patrons, who had underwritten his campaign in Gaul and were growing restless and frustrated at its financial fruitlessness. Caesar identified Britain, and the invasion thereof, as essential to the wider success and profitability of his Gallic campaign. Caesar immediately sought to understand the largeness of the island, how powerful its inhabitants were, their customs, art of war, and if their harbours are fit to receive large ships. His list of inquiries gives an indication of his commercial interest in Britain. His pragmatic inquiry into the number of harbours and their suitability for large ships, rather than warships, is one example of this. Roman trading vessels at the time were enormous, and typically carried several hundred tons of cargo. Moreover, they were distinctly bigger than their warships, and were privately owned and operated by privateers for considerable profit. These larger ships of substantial cargoes were owned by the major holders of all forms of wealth and power in society, which suggests that Pompey and Crassus were foremost amongst these potential beneficiaries. Since continually pushing northward from his designated region of Cisalpine Gaul, Caesar was never protecting Rome but rather chasing profit and plunder for himself and his patrons. This manifested in his conspicuous expansionism to achieve a continent-wide monopoly on commerce. It is inconceivable to think that Caesar had not considered the inevitable interaction with Britain, a predominant trading centre of northern Europe, which openly supported the region's resistance of Rome. However, Caesar's determination to displace the Veneti's privileged coastline position, with its extensive sway, ships, and trade with Britain, confirms his forethought. Monopolization of the continent's trade was paramount to Caesar because, once achieved, it provided power, security, and perpetual profit. When pitching his invasion plan to Crassus and Pompey in 56 BC, Caesar evidently presented a compelling case. However, he later conceded that there was insufficient time for carrying out a campaign, but nevertheless, it would be of great advantage to him. He also considered the concurrent insurgencies in Gaul as trivial matters, which should not take precedence over Britain. Nonetheless, the expedition was a complete failure, from start to finish. Fortunately for Caesar, the impending equinox excused his abrupt abandonment of the island. Despite being a most peculiar, disjointed, and rushed affair, the initial invasion certainly served Caesar's immediate need of calming his creditors. Furthermore, it bought time for the creation of a more considered expedition in the future. If Caesar's initial invasion can be seen as diversionary, the second was a concerted effort to conquer. His intentions are evident in both the preparations and resources he expended in comparison to his first invasion. His fleet, 3 times larger than before, was launched in unison, and a further 3 legions and 2,000 cavalry remained to protect the harbour and provide a corn supply. This was no dress rehearsal. Caesar was determined to avoid the rushed mistakes which had marred his first attempt. Besides Caesar's own reports, Cicero's letters to friends and family have preserved information and dates concerning Caesar's second invasion. However, they confuse Caesar's subsequent story of success. It is important to note, however, that in no letter of Cicero do we find the year of its composition, besides 3 examples. Even in these 3 specific examples, the year is not provided, but gleaned through inference. His letters regarding Caesar's invasions of Britain typically provide only the day and the month, and do not evidence Caesar's assumed return to Britain within 10 months. Nevertheless, and that said, during the second invasion, Cicero wrote a letter to his friend Atticus on 5th of July, raising concerns that he had not heard from his brother Quintus, whom he expected to be in Britain. A subsequent letter to Atticus, on 24th of July, states that a letter from my brother Quintus leads me to believe he is now in Britain, however I am waiting in suspense to learn what he is doing. At the end of August, Cicero received a letter from Caesar, dated 5th of August, stating that affairs in Britain were satisfactory enough, but Quintus was not with him when he reached the coast. Subsequently, Cicero received letters from my brother Quintus and from Caesar, dated from the nearest coast of Britain on the 29th August, reporting the conclusion of the campaign. No detail or explanation was provided, only that the campaign was complete. Hostages have been received, There is no booty. Tribute has, however, been imposed, and they are bringing the army back from Britain. At the very least, and from the blurred picture this correspondence portrays, it appears that Caesar's second invasion was another remarkably short affair. The timeline is decipherable from the delay of correspondence between Britain and Rome, which appears to have been approximately 3 or 4 weeks. Cicero's receipt of Quintus's letter on the 24th July suggests that the Roman army had recently arrived in Britain around 1st July. The subsequent letter, sent from Caesar on 4th of August, reported no success, but does mention his separation from his legate, Quintus, when he returned to the coast within a month of landing. Caesar's commentaries confirm the considerable time spent back at the coastal camp, salvaging the wrecked fleet. Quintus's apparent silence throughout his time as Caesar's legate in Britain is also quite remarkable. Whether events on the island had been strictly censored by Caesar until their completion is supposition. However, their conspicuously coordinated correspondence on 29th of August reported a conclusion to the campaign without reported rhyme or reason. Britain's sudden submission of hostages and a promise of tribute sits paradoxically alongside Caesar's uneventful incursion and rapid retirement from the island with no booty whatsoever. This odd outcome suggests that something, unreported by Caesar, caused this peculiar success and permanent departure from Britain.